can speak to our Europe editor, Armen Georgian. Hello to you, Armen. It seems that they agree they want to tackle this issue. The question is how and when. Where do things stand at the moment?
Yeah, it's true. The question of how has been really plaguing EU member states for many years now. What's happened this week is there's been some movements on aspects of the proposed migration deal, but deadlock on other aspects. So if we look at the forward movement first, if you will, there's been an agreement reached this week in principle on something called the crisis mechanism, which would allow member states to introduce individual members if they feel overburdened, essentially, to relieve the strain on national administrations. And that's part of what you might call a focus on a hardline approach to illegal migration. This is the kind of turn that leaders such as Georgia Meloni of Italy have been wanting, and we understand that the draft text that's being discussed today talks about stepping up migrant returns and includes language such as illegal immigration must be immediately addressed in a determined manner. So that's one aspect of this. Where there are still sticking points, though, is on migrant relocations, which has actually been in this sort of thorn in the side of the EU as an idea for many years. But the idea basically is to relieve the pressure on the so-called frontline states. So to relocate migrants from, say, Italy or Greece to other EU member states. And if other EU member states don't want to host those migrants, they would have to pay into a common fund. And Poland and Hungary are fiercely opposed to that idea. Remember that Poland is holding an election on October the 15th, so that is playing into the campaign there. So the question really is, I suppose today, will the disagreements about this whole relocation idea, is that going to scupper a joint statement? But as I said earlier, on the other issue, the crisis mechanism, there does seem to have been forward movement on that this week.
And Armen, can you break it down for us? What are the various steps in this whole process?
Right, so all of what we're discussing is part of the Migration and Asylum Pact that the European Commission first proposed in September 2020. So it's been in the making for a long time. The European Commission is hoping that all 10 parts of this proposed pact will be agreed between the member states and the European Parliament by early next year, let's say certainly before the European election in June. That's a big question mark whether that timeline will actually work. And even if it does, it's not the end of the affair. So let's just even imagine that the Asylum and Migration Pact has been approved by the time of the European elections, which is what EU leaders want, because they want to present Europe as delivering for European voters on this whole migration issue. But even if that succeeds by June, it's not the end of the whole matter, because you're going to have a different European Parliament that comes out of the elections in June with different political colours. You're going to have, in the months after the European elections, the EU presidency that will be held by countries that have a traditionally hardline approach, if you will, on illegal migration. So there's every possibility that whatever is agreed by June could be at least maybe not reopened, but that political forces will try to reopen the text and look at aspects of it again after June. So it's very much a running sort of challenge for the EU. It's not something that we can think of as being just somehow wrapped up by June and then the EU can move on to talk about other things. It's not like that. It's a crisis which, as you know, Will, has been really rolling in one way or another since the big migrant crisis of 2015 to 2016.
All right, Armen, thank you very much. Armen Georgian, our Europe editor.